Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Test, Don't Guess Tuesday. Why do we call it that? Because it's always better to have test results that we can act on than to guess at what's happening, especially when we're talking about the gut, and especially when a gut test such as the GI map, which is the test that I run with my clients, is readily available. Realistically, it's expensive. But the amount of information that you get from it that you can then act on saves you so much time and money down the line. So today I want to talk about H. pylori specifically. If you've watched these in the past, I run through people's lab reports and talk to you about their case history and what we did to heal their gut. But today I want to focus specifically on H. pylori. If you're not familiar with H. pylori and you've ever watched those movies of the stockbrokers in the 80s who were sitting at their desks, super stressed out, popping Tums and clutching their stomachs, and they were diagnosed with ulcers, now we know that the driving force behind those ulcers is actually a bacteria called H. pylori. That bacteria is super smart. It burrows itself into the lining of your stomach, and there it secretes an enzyme that keeps your stomach acid a little bit lower so that it can thrive. But imagine the downline effects of not having enough stomach acid. And that's what I want to talk about today. A lot of times when we feel that reflux start to bubble up, we think in our heads, I feel a little bit of acid coming up my esophagus, must have too much stomach acid. It's bubbling up. When in fact, it's actually a lack of stomach acid that keeps that flap in the stomach from closing and allows it to open and some of that stomach acid to bubble up. Very often, I'm finding more and more people with really low stomach acid, and that's one of the factors that the test will tell us, how you are digesting your food. And as you can imagine, and you know I work with people that are horribly constipated, it's a driving factor for constipation, and let's talk about why that is. When your stomach acid is low, your ability to digest your food is weak. So the goal is to have that food hit the stomach, get churned up by all that stomach acid, and then make its way out of the stomach and start processing through your intestines. However, if it's not broken up and broken down completely in the stomach and starts to make its way into the intestines with maybe some of those bacteria that should have been killed by strong stomach acid, that's not killed. And then the food isn't broken down enough. So as it's continually trying to break itself down as it makes its way through the intestine, and that results in slower motility. So you can see how that leads to constipation, right? It's like one thing in front of the other, in front of the other, in front of the other, and the end result is constipation, but it really started back up in the stomach. So I want to take a look at some GI map test results, and I want to talk about this patient who came in with acid reflux, stomach pain, and constipation. Those were the main complaints, and wanted to have a gut test and take a look at what was going on, and boy, did we find out the answers. So let's look at that. Okay, so this is her GI map test. I'm just zoning in right now on the H. pylori test, and you can see that it was high. And to be honest, I don't always think about putting people on supplements when H. pylori is here. It really depends on symptoms and what else is happening in the gut. So let me show you what else I like to take a look at. Below this H. pylori test, you will see commensal and keystone bacteria. You will see here that she has an overgrowth pattern. Her Enterobacter is high, her Akkermansia creeping high. And what that tells me is things are starting to overgrow, both the good guys and the bad guys, I would assume. So let's go to the section of her test that will tell us what the bad guys are doing. Let's see. And sure enough, take a look. Opportunistic and overgrowth microbes. So there's a bunch of microbes that worry me, actually more than the H. pylori. At the top, Enterococcus faecalis and Piscium are both high, Pseudomonas high, Staph high, Strep high. Those are all, we can deal with those with a nice broad spectrum antibacterial herbal blend. When we get down into inflammatory and autoimmune related bacteria, and we see these high and significantly high, Citrobacter and Klebsiella, responsible for autoimmune related conditions. Now, upon questioning, she was not having any symptoms of autoimmune disease, had actually seen a doctor and knew that a marker called the ANA, which tells us about autoimmune diseases, was not high. And so we don't suspect that it has gotten to the point yet where she would express an autoimmune disease. Remember, guys, these are preventable. When you take this test and you get these markers back and you take a good protocol to clear these out, autoimmune disease cannot happen, right? We are going to clear it from the gut, heal the gut, seal the gut, and move on with our lives. A diagnosis like this, a picture like this, not the end of the world, very fixable, right? I like to use products from the Biocidin line, some olive leaf extract, perhaps, the Biocidin drops I would start with, definitely always using a binder. I like mastic gum for H. pylori. I never want to treat H. pylori in the stomach with antibiotics because you are ruining the gut and you're setting yourself up for bigger problems down the line. I don't understand why gut doctors treat gut problems, most gut problems, with antibiotics, when you can do the same with herbs that work synergistically with the body and leave the good cells intact while killing the bad ones. Just my 2 cents about gut health. So with this test, you can see there was a lot of overgrowth. And the only other thing I want to show you, and I checked, was what the levels of what the levels of intestinal health markers were. So here you'll see steatocrit, nice and low, below the detectable limit. That's how much fat is leaking into the stool, showing us that it's not digesting properly, right? Between the stomach and the gallbladder, something's not quite right. Here, she's doing great. Elastase, also not terrible. I'd like to see it a little bit higher, really solidly into that green, right? But here she's going to need some digestive help until we can clear that H. pylori. So the idea here is take the levels of H. pylori down, raise the stomach acid up, which will take care of any leftover H. pylori, and then keep it away as we have robust stomach acid. Also, I would expect that reflux to go away, which it did happen here for her. The other intestinal health markers you can see here clear. The only things a little bit concerning is calprotectin at the very, very bottom, creeping higher. I'd like to see that again very low, and that's talking about inflammation in the gut, but no wonder. She's got a lot of bad bugs brewing in there. And again, once you take care of the bugs, heal and seal the gut, that number should come down nicely. So that is the GI map test. That's how we look at it. That's how we think about the layers of what's happening, right? I would also put her on a real good probiotic towards the end of the protocol, and then again, using products to heal and seal the gut lining as we finished the end of a protocol. And she was great. She managed it well. She did great. She's feeling good. Again, no symptoms of autoimmune diseases and no more acid reflux. So you can order this test yourself at digestivediscovery.com, and you will take a look at your results just like this. There are tons of study modules in the back end of that test portal that will teach you how to read these yourselves. But here I am every week going over all of the specifics of this test and sharing with you how to read it on your own, right? Because we are responsible for our own health. Take healing into your own hands, order your own gut test, heal your gut. So many things change, right? Because health starts in the gut. So it's been a pleasure. I'm Melissa Hall-Klepacki. You can order this test at digestivediscovery.com, melissahallklepacki.com. My website is my name. Thanks for being here, and I'll see you again next week.